It all started a long, long time ago.
Not that long ago. Well, longer ago than that. Now we're getting somewhere. You see, almost 6,000 years ago and halfway across the world, in an area we now call the Middle East, there are two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. The land between these rivers is called Mesopotamia, which makes sense because Mesopotamia literally means between rivers. This is where some of the first civilizations began. In the southern part of Mesopotamia, where the rivers come together and is today located in the country of Iraq, was once where the ancient civilization of Sumeria was located. Sumerians occupied this region in about 4000 BC and ruled it for about 2,000 years. The Sumerians are credited with many important inventions, including the wheel, written language, math, agriculture, irrigation, and the establishment of laws, just to name a few. Sumerians established many settlements or cities in this area, and while they shared a similar culture, each city was completely separate. Each independent city, or city-state as they were called, had its own government, rulers, and local gods or goddesses. Civilization of ancient Sumer was made up of 12 major city-states. One such city-state was Ur. Ur was one of the oldest settlements in this area, dating as far back as about 4000 BC. The ancient city was located where the modern city of Nicaea, Iraq, is today. While approximately 30,000 people lived in Ur, the entire city covered only 60 acres. That's less than 1 square mile. Because Ur was located near the Euphrates River, the soil was good and provided its citizens with plenty of food. It was also near the outlet to the Mediterranean Sea, which gave it an advantage over the other city-states and made it an ideal location for trade and military control. Like other Sumerian city-states, a massive wall surrounded the city to protect it. In the center of the city was an enormous temple or ziggurat, which was dedicated to worshipping the city-state's primary god, Nana, the Sumerian moon god, but more on that later. Houses and shops spread out around the ziggurat, with the largest homes being the closest to the ziggurat. These houses usually belong to the richest people, like rulers, politicians, and priests or priestesses. Further out were the smaller houses, belonging to merchants, farmers, and craftsmen. The houses were close together and the streets were very, very narrow. Canals weaved in and out of the walls of Ur, and farmers grew their crops right outside of the city. Ur is considered to be the capital of ancient Sumer, and was one of the wealthiest and most prosperous Sumerian city-states. According to history, there were 3 dynasties of Ur. Much of this information comes from what is called the Sumerian King List. The Sumerian King List is an ancient stone tablet that lists the names, the region, and the length of time of many Sumerian kings' rule. However, there is some evidence that some kings are not on it, and others who are on it might not have actually been kings. But according to this list, there were 3 periods where dynasties were ruled from Ur. The first dynasty of Ur was from approximately 2500 to 2445 BC. The first ruler of this dynasty was named Pada. He ruled the longest during this period. He built a temple to Ninhursag, the mother goddess. Pada's son, Nana, ruled after him. Nana was followed by 2 other kings, Balunu and Ilawa, but they were kings for a much shorter time. It would be a century before the second dynasty of Ur occurred. There is very little known about that second dynasty or who ruled it. The King's List reports a king named Nani, and Nani's son, Nana, may have ruled during the second dynasty of Ur. The third dynasty of Ur is best known and is said to be the start of the Sumerian Renaissance. The first king of the third dynasty of Ur was Ur-Nama. He ruled around 2100 BC. He was the king who called for the construction of the Great Ziggurat of Ur to be built and implemented a set of rules called Code of Ur-Nama, one of the earliest legal systems. His son, Shulgi, reigned after him. King Shulgi also made a lot of advances, including creating a tax system, a national calendar, and a permanent army of professional soldiers, kind of like our modern military today. One very important aspect of Sumerian life was religion. Sumerians didn't worship just one god, they worshipped many. This is called polytheism. Every god reigned over something different, like sky, water, the mountains, the weather. Well, you get it. They also believed that the gods ruled their city, and whoever ruled the city was put there by a god. This idea is called theocracy. Sumerians believed their gods acted the way humans do, and had human emotions. Also, it was important to keep the gods and goddesses happy. They believed they would be rewarded if they made the gods happy and punished if they made them angry. So they built the magnificent ziggurats, both as a home for the gods and goddesses and as a place to worship them. The people gave many offerings to the gods, including riches, animals, servants, food, and wine. Early in Sumerian culture, gods were associated with concepts of creation and man. There were 7 primary Sumerian deities. These were, and the most important, the main god, as well as the god of the sky and the heavens. Inanna, the most important female god. She was the goddess of love, fertility, and war. Utu, a sun god and the god of justice. Nana was the moon god and the god of wisdom. Enlil, the god of wind, air, and storms. Enki, the god of water, magic, and creation of people. And lastly, Ninhursag, the great mother goddess who protected women and children and queen of the mountain. Later on, Sumerian gods became less about nature and more seen as protectors and special patrons of various cities. The patron god of Ur was the moon god Nana. The great ziggurat of Ur was built for him. This enormous temple was about 210 feet in length, 150 feet in width, and estimated to be almost 100 feet high. It was also home to Nana's wife, Ningal, the goddess of reeds, and the mother of Utu, the sun god. The great ziggurat of Ur still exists today, or at least parts of it, and it is one of the best preserved and most spectacular remains of ancient Sumeria. While not patron gods, other gods did have or were believed to have had temples in Ur. Some of these gods include Inanna and Nihursag, who I previously mentioned, Haya, god of scribes, Ninziana, the goddess of Venus, Demu, the god of healing and medicine, and Gilgamesh, a hero god and the main character of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was the very first superhero story in history. One very important reason the Sumerian civilization evolved was the development of an irrigation system and the advancements they made in agriculture. Early settlers in Mesopotamia needed to bring water to their crops. They did this by digging ditches and forming a system of canals and channels leading from the rivers to their fields. In addition, they began to use the dirt from digging out canals to build embankments and form levees and dams. This irrigation system allowed them to control the flow of water. They were able to bring water to their crops when it was dry, but also avoid flooding, which the area was prone to. This allowed them to cultivate land and grow an abundance of food. This was very important for two reasons. First, it meant people did not have to spend all of their time searching for food, because now a few people, farmers, could grow enough food to feed everyone. More people could focus on other jobs, like build, learning, and crafting. Secondly, because they were able to grow more food than even the city could use, they were able to use it to trade with neighboring lands. The main crop of Ur and throughout Sumer as a whole was grain, mostly barley or wheat. Grain was ground into flour, which was used to make bread or porridge. Barley was also used to make beer. You heard me right. Beer was an incredibly big thing in ancient Mesopotamia. They also planted vegetables like cucumbers, lettuce, onions, lentils, apples, and spices. Date palms were also a very important food. In addition to eating them, they also made things from the palm, which they used to trade. They raised pigs, sheep, goats, and cattle, some to eat and some to use as work animals. They also ate fish, turtles, and birds, as they were plentiful around the rivers. Since there was plenty of food, most people in Ur ate 2 meals a day. Meals generally consisted of grain like porridge or breads, and some vegetables, lentils, beans, or turnips, and fruits such as plums, figs, pears, dates, and apples, while a variety of meats were available, including beef, lamb, pork, goat, duck. Meat was usually expensive, so they generally were only eaten by the wealthy. Ur had basically 3 social classes. At the highest level were the wealthy. These were the city leaders, rulers, kings, soldiers, and priests and priestesses. The next class included people like merchants, teachers, builders, farmers, and craftsmen. Lastly, at the very bottom of the social ladder were slaves. Slaves were considered property and could be bought and sold. Record found noted that slaves generally cost less than a donkey, but more than a cow. Most slaves were people captured in a battle, or were Sumerian children of the poor who had been sold into slavery to pay off their parents' debts. These debt slaves could work off their debt and eventually buy back their freedom. The social classes affected both men and women. The upper class men and women enjoyed wearing fine clothes and lots of gold jewelry. They lived in the greatest and largest houses and often had servants. Girls who were very wealthy or royalty could attend school. Although most did not, some upper-class women learned to read and write. While the lower class did not have the luxuries of the upper class, they did not go hungry and owned their own homes. They wore similar styles as the upper class, just made of much less expensive material, and jewelry just not usually made of gold. Sumerian citizens were not stuck in a social class, and so parents would have their children become a scribe, priest, or priestess to move them up the social ladder. Overall, gender roles in ancient Sumeria were pretty traditional. Women tended to take care of the house and children, and men were warriors, rulers, and builders. Women had more basic rights than they did in many later civilizations. Sumerian women could and often did work. They could own their own property and have their own money. Also, they could be priestesses, which gave them the same power and status of a priest. The end of the third dynasty of Ur also marked the fall of Sumer when it was invaded by the Elamites around 2004 BC. While it was clear the city-state of Ur was of central importance throughout Sumerian civilization, Ur remained and even became a principal city again as part of Babylonia. However, after Babylonia was taken over by Persia in 539 BCE, the city fell into ruin and eventually disappeared. It wasn't until many centuries later that the European explorers found the remains of several of the ancient city-states, including Ur. Then, in 1854, a team of British archaeologists found an uncovered part of the ziggurat of Nana. But the biggest and most extensive excavation began in 1922 by another British archaeologist named Charles Leonard Woolley. The excavation lasted 12 years. Woolley and his team uncovered the entire Great Temple of Ur, as well as housing and merchant areas of the city. But their most amazing discovery was that of the royal cemetery. The individual tombs of the royal cemetery not only contained the remains of the king or queen, but many other people as well. It is believed that these additional people were the royal servants and attendants who were, let's say, sacrificed when the ruler died. One tomb, called the Great Death Pit, held more than 70 bodies. The royal cemetery contained 16 royal tombs, each filled with treasure. Not only treasure made of gold, silver, bronze, and other precious materials, but historical treasures, including art, jewelry, musical instruments, cuneiform tablets, and even a chariot. Much of what we know about ancient Sumeria came from the remains of the great ziggurats of Ur. Since that time, much work has been done to restore the ancient temple. Unfortunately, the ziggurat was damaged by gunfire and explosions during the Gulf War in 1991. But the good news is that the ancient historic site still stands today and is open to the public for tours.
After 2 days in the desert sun, my skin began to turn red. After 3 days in the desert fun, I was looking at a riverbed. And the story it told of a river that flowed made me sad to think it was dead. You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La 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 la. La 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 la. After 9 days, I let the horse run free, 'cause the desert had turned to sea. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rings. The ocean is a desert.